I apologize for my voice tonight. Please bear with me. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on February 26, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the Triton High School Library. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read the district vision statement aloud. We're a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families and the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners, students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So welcome to the fiscal year 2021 public hearing for the Triton Regional High School budget. District, yes, the school district budget. Sorry. Yes, I know, right? So a couple of comments tonight. So I always say when people ask me, well, how's the committee going to vote, that I'm only one of 9. But really on budget hearing nights like this, I'm one of 20,000 residents that live within the borders of our towns of Rowley, Newbury, and Salisbury. And every one of the residents out there has the right to come and express their opinions. And I personally welcome all those opinions being expressed because I think it only makes us stronger. I know it's a little nerve-wracking to come here in front of the school committee. I assure you that we are all friendly. So I'm Narissa, Maureen, Paul, Linda, Tina, and Paul, and Dina. Sorry, Dina. You're always on my right. You always get left out. I know. You're just always on my right. Like my brain goes to the left. So I hope you'll remember that we're just 7 of the 20,000 that are out there. We are missing 2 members tonight who unfortunately couldn't make it. I know they do wish that they could be here, and they do intend to review the video when it's posted online afterwards, so that as budget deliberations go on, they have all of the information that they can possibly have. The budget process starts in the fall with the student councils or the school councils and the principals at each of the elementary schools and the individual departments like athletics and special education and district-wide working within their administrative groups to come up with the individual budgets. Those presentations start to the school committee in January. We've already had a number of meetings over the course of the last few months. The tentative budget, which the superintendent will go briefly through the changes from last year, briefly, in a couple of minutes, was voted on February 11th, right? 12th. The tentative budget that we vote is kind of, I would say, commonly known as the high water mark budget. So the idea is that that at some point our towns need some guidance from us on what's the highest assessments that they could receive. So what we do is we put together kind of a base budget, a package of changes based on the previous year's budget, and we use that and the state data that comes to us at the end of January to go ahead and calculate approximate assessments to our towns so that they know kind of what to expect as they're starting on their budget process, which in the latter part of our budget process is happening simultaneously with the beginning part of their budget process. And as we are the largest part of their budgets for all 3 of our towns, it's really important for them to have that information as they go into the beginning of their budget process. So that said, I'm going to open it up to the superintendent. If you have the packet, there are a bunch of them that are back on the bookshelves back there. If you don't have one already, you'll find in the packet a copy of the tentative budget that was voted on February 12th. And I believe he's going to start on page 1.
I'm going to start
and end on page 1.
Start and end on page 1, yes. So again, we'll take this quickly with the assumption that there has been some involvement in the previous budget process, as we have noted since the original presentations back in January. But focusing on page one outlines additional costs over fiscal 20. So this is over the current year, what we're projecting for cost increases to keep level services, except for those noted below on lines 22 through 29. All other cost increases or decreases are the cost of doing business as we stand today. So up at the top are all salary lines 1 through 5. 1 and 2 are obviously the two biggest. That is all steps for all union contracts. The vast majority of our employees are part of one of 5 employee unions. Steps are guaranteed. The second line there with the COLA, or cost of living adjustment, we're currently negotiating with both the teachers and the instructional assistants, and as such we have not put a percentage of what those dollars represent due to the fact that we are still in confidential negotiations with that group. So to continue to keep those discussions confidential, there hasn't been further detail provided and won't be until those contracts are finalized. Salary reserve is a line that we carry in order to compensate for any changes, with roughly $26 million in salaries across the entirety of the district out of all funds. Bringing that line to $135,000 represents less than 0.5%. We have, as far as fluctuation in regards to hiring, new positions that might be needed throughout the year based on an IEP or things like that. Column movement is for those teachers and IAs who have received additional professional development credits or college credits that allow them lateral movement on the salary structure and the salary grid. We need to be notified by December 15th in order to be able to budget for that, and those take effect the following September. So these take effect in fiscal 21. And then there's 2 adjustments actually relating to my position and to Kyle Warren, who's the new business administrator, as far as those changes in positions and contract shift overs. That is actually savings going into next year. So all told, those 5 lines represent $1,026,000. Roughly half of the total projected increase for next year. So if we continue on down to the non-salary changes, line 6 is the medical insurance. We are assuming, or not assuming, we have a firm rate renewal of 7.6%. That increase of $197,000 is less than a 7.6% over last year, and that's because we actually saw some additional savings due to just enrollment changes with retirees going to medics plans. So that line with the 7.6% increase in rates, but some savings in other areas, shows an increase of $197,000. Liabilities and workers' compensations, general premium increases, $8,500 or $8,600. Unemployment, we're taking that down about $15,000. That's based on real-time needs. Obviously, when we're in a situation where we're reducing staff, our unemployment costs go up, and they can go up for a period of several years. And folks who go on and get jobs but then may lose their job, they can come back onto our roster for a period of time, even a couple years down the road. So, however, our numbers are trending well, so we'll reduce that line by $15,000. Under retirement and taxes, line 9, that $168,055 is entirely our increase in assessment for the Essex Regional Retirement System. That is the district's portion of the pension for all members, all employees who are not a member of the Mass Teachers Retirement System. Anyone who is a licensed administrator or educator contributes 11% of their salary to the state MTRS pension system. The state matches that. For all of those who are not part of the MTRS, they're part of Essex County. They pay their 11%, and the district matches that 11%. So that's a funding schedule that's set by the entire enrollment board. Triton represents roughly 3.2% of the entire Essex County regional system. So that is a funding schedule that we know about. Unfortunately, the figures have been increasing over the recent years, and we can assume that those will stay high for the foreseeable future. Special education out of district is showing a decrease of close to $235,000. You'll remember in this year's budget, both coming into this year's budget as well as over the course of this year, we've seen some extraordinary expense increases. As a result, we'll see some additional savings and relief out of circuit breaker next year because those are reimbursements on current year or the prior year, as well as there are students moving out, aging out. So all told, that line is coming down $235,000 as of this moment in time. Special education contracted services summer program, a small increase of $8,100. Special education transportation showing an increase of $155,000. Again, those are some costs. We've had discussions over the course of this year about costs for the current year being quite high, and the Finance Subcommittee has spoken through the concept of the deficit that we're running and how we'll close that as we get towards the end of the year. But that is one of the contributing factors the current year, so we'll need to adjust the budget for next year. Lines 13 and 14 are frustrating lines. Line 13 is our school choice. We saw an increase in costs of $207,000 this year for school choice. 42 new students chose to leave Triton schools and attend other area public schools. 19 of those students have never set foot in the Triton schools. So we're still in the process of unpacking that. Just got a final report from our investigator today, proofing out to ensure that those students really do live within the district. And so we're continuing to unpack that, but that was certainly a concerning trend. And then also charter tuitions, showing $111,000 increase, projecting 54 students at the charter for next year, and not yet fully funding that reimbursement program. So that is certainly something that we will continue to put pressure on. Charters impact both the Student Opportunity Act revisions in the Chapter 70 formula, as well as the reimbursement calculation. So there's a twofold impact there. But collectively, charter and choice students leaving to those two schools cost over $250,000 for both the current year and will need to be adjusted for next year. Line 15, transportation, we rebid our transportation contract. We had two bidders come to the table, Salter and NRT. NRT's bid was over $700,000 less than Salter's bid. So obviously they're the low bidder. They're the current and incumbent contractor, but the cost did go up 9.8% or $141,000 for next year alone. Increases over the next 4 years of the contract. Next year is year 1 of a 5. The increases over years 2 through 5 are significantly less than that initial increase. It's worth noting part of the increase, or the majority of the increase in costs, is salaries, because we are not a prevailing wage district. There are other districts that are run out of the Newbury terminal that are prevailing wage, which means if we're paying lower than prevailing wage and someone can drive a Masconomet run rather than a Triton run and make $5 more an hour, well, of course, they're going to choose Masconomet. So we're hoping that this, we've had a significant challenge finding and maintaining and retaining qualified drivers. So substitutes are a routine and daily frustration for both NRT and for parents. So we're hoping that this, while it's a big number, will hopefully start to mitigate that problem as well. 16 and 17, IT operations and supplies and services shows a collective decrease of $10,000. Utilities and facilities maintenance, that includes all utilities and all maintenance costs, showing $53,000. A big chunk of the increase is actually at Pine Grove, where we have many systems that never existed before. So we actually have an entire HVA system with rooftop units and air conditioned and conditioned spaces and real heat. We actually have to maintain those systems now. So those Pine Grove lines increased disproportionately with the other schools, but they're now right in line with what the maintenance costs are and have been for the other schools at this point. District-wide for athletics, a $20,000 increase, and that's everything from new transportation costs to higher costs for coaches per the contract. Again, just the cost of doing business. And then in line 20, we're increasing the substitute line by $25,000. That's actually to reflect what we actually spend on substitutes rather than underfunding that and scrambling at the end of the year. As we've said over recent meetings, we want to get away from this. We're not using excess and deficiency as a funding revenue at the beginning of the year to fund a budget, but we need to get away from doing what we're going to have to probably do this April and backfilling the budget. because it's equally as detrimental to our bond rating, which will ultimately be to the detriment of the towns. The final line before we get to the new information is a Chromebook lease that was begun. There's several leases. There's multiple cycles, but that is an existing cost that's rolling out of a district line and into the middle school. So starting on line 22, 3, 4, and 5, these are actually new costs that we are suggesting and recommending be part of this budget. 22 is the implementation of a history and social sciences curriculum in grades 6, 7, and 9. Civics was implemented this year in grade 8. That's both an electronic web-based curricula as well as Chromebooks to be able to provide the curricula. So every student has a Chromebook in front of them, not to take home, but in front of them like they would a textbook. So that $28,000 funds both the web curriculum as well as the Chromebooks for grades 6, 7, and 9. 23 is an oft discussed topic in regards to full-day tuition-free kindergarten. We are one of very, very few now in the state that don't offer free full-day K. There's discussion whether or not it becomes official as budgets continue. Beverly, Amesbury, Pentucket, all talking. Some have officially voted to move towards free full-day K, which leaves a very small pocket of districts who are not offering free full-day kindergarten. There is talk at the legislative level of mandating this, which would be a tough pill to swallow if that was all required in 1 year. So the approach that we've taken, I think is a wise approach, is to phase this in. So we roughly collect $225,000 in tuition revenues each year. So phasing that in over 3 years, if we add $75,000 to the budget this coming year, the tuition would drop from $2,950 to $2,000, add an additional $75,000 for fiscal 22. Is that right? Yep, fiscal 22, tuition would drop to $1,000, and then September of 22, which is fiscal 23, add another $75,000, and we then have free full-day kindergarten. Ideally, we would do this all in one fell swoop. Given the realities of the other budget numbers and figures, I think this is a wise approach, especially because this is going to become a must-do, that if this is going to get handed to us, we have to prepare. And on the other side of that argument, it's the right thing to do. Athletic uniforms rotation, we've had lots of discussion about uniforms. Some of you have experienced these uniforms. The routine has been, if you have a strong booster group, they're contributing to uniforms. If you don't, you're wearing some uniforms that should have been in the trash a while ago. So this $25,000 gets added. It's not a new increase each year, but this gets added to the budget, and this allows for a 5-year rotation for all teams, all competitive teams, to get new uniforms every 5 years. And then finally, the reduction of 1 teacher at Salisbury Elementary. This is not increasing any class sizes. This is actually currently there are 4 sections in grade 6, and there are 3 sections in grade 5. So as the 3 sections move from 5 to 6, it's simply we have 1 less teacher needed. So that's a savings. And there are several retirees across the district that keep popping up that some of us are shocking. Some of those are coming. Others, there have been several that are shocking us. Because of several retirees, one of those positions would be a retiree, which means we recoup the entirety of that reduction. Lines 26 through 29, we are restoring at one point. Again, we had multiple supports at the district level, and then we had a full-time ETC and a full-time clerk at every school. We currently have 1 half-time ETC and at each school, and then 1 special ed administrator, and Sandy, 1 clerk processing all IEPs across the district. So we're looking at putting 1 half-time ETC that would actually become part of the secondary process, and the addition would work into the fact that 6th grade would become the same ETC as the middle school, so whether that's 6, 7, and 8, so that we have 1 ETC that's managing the final year of 6th grade, as well as the transition up to 7th grade, which we think will have very positive effects for the transition to middle school for those students on IEPs. Special education teacher at the middle school. When we first started this process, I believe we were talking about this we need this. We weren't saying an absolute must do yet. Over the course of the last several weeks, Is that a fair statement, Dave? This has definitely moved itself into the must-do category. So if we were talking about cuts in other areas, I would probably be saying to you that we need to put this in, even if it meant pulling in other areas. 28, restoring a halftime custodian at each of the 3 elementary schools. We reduced these in 2018, and the school buildings have absolutely suffered. The classrooms are not as clean as they need to be, the bathrooms are not as clean as they need to be, and the entire crews are working beyond their regular schedule. There's just not enough manpower. Technically, we'd be putting another full-time person at each building, but the restoration of that halftime will make a big difference in regards to our ability to keep buildings clean, especially at a time, there's a draft memo will likely be out tomorrow in regards to issues like coronavirus, where we need to be upping our game and increasing the amount of disinfecting door handles and keyboards and hard surfaces, and we're going to do that, but that's going to be at the expense of other routine things that need to happen. So having that additional staff, halftime at each elementary school is absolutely imperative. And then number 29, certainly the favorite of students, is eliminating the student parking fee. We talked about the reduction, a phased-in approach through the process of reducing all student fees. I've proposed that both because I think it's the right thing to do, but also because as districts begin to eliminate fees, this becomes a competition. And when we get line 13 up there, when we have people choosing to leave the district for other districts at no cost to parents because of school choice, we need to remain competitive, both academically as well as on the playing fields, as well as what we're charging families out of pocket to be able to participate in all things academic and extracurricular. So while none of those other fees made it this far, I think the student parking fee is a very strong statement from us to the students who we've had the discussion. A lot of these students are paying this fee themselves. They're likely have a car on campus because they have to get to work after school, and then they're using that job to pay this parking fee. So as we've said several times, it ranges between $15,000 and $25,000 per year. But the amount of time and energy to both collect the fee and for Mr. Brennan to be the parking police, there are so many things that we can have him do that are value. So collectively, all told, that's $1,042,000 in other expense increases. So the collective increase is $2,068,541. I will lie and just say I will turn the page once. I said I was going to stay on that page, but just to clarify. So on page 2, you go to the top, the general operating expenses move from $42.4 million to $44,545,246. That's that $2,068,541 increase, which is a 4.87% increase in our expenditures. Capital debt services went down. Towns understand that. They expect that. That's been part of a 20-year schedule. There's no surprises there. Of note in regards to our transportation or our revenues, we're assuming this point $88,000 in new regional transportation revenues. We don't know what the state figure is yet. Hopefully there will be a little bit more there. Probably not in time for us before we finalize the budget on March 11th. Chapter 70 base aid is going from $8.754 million to $8.46 million. So that's showing an increase of $91,000. That's because of the final figure in fiscal 20 was finalized after we finalized our budget. If you look at state figures, we received $68,000 more this year over last year for the budget, and that's with the new Student Opportunity Act that was going to, quote unquote, bring the windfall of cash to schools and across the state of Massachusetts. So as we go through this budget process, we can't lose sight of the fact that there's still a lot of work to do, because 57%, we've been out here for 3 years flapping our traps, trying to get people to listen and say this is not going to be what we think, what you all think. We were using figures 40%, 57% of cities and towns across the Commonwealth saw not a dime more than $30 per pupil. So it's the same amount of money increase that we've had for year over year for about the past decade. So that promise didn't happen. So the reality is we're expecting $115,000 new dollars as far as revenues and projecting over $2 million in increases. So that means that $1.9 million of that has to be absorbed by the towns. So that's a problem in and of itself. So just to clarify, those overall operating expenditures on page 3, if you care to look at the way it's calculated, Those yield a total operating assessment to the towns of $34,536,364. That brings Newbury with an increase of $523,000 or 5.5%. Rowley at about $490,000 for 4.6% increase, and Salisbury close to over $940,000 increase with a 7.4% increase. Those are big numbers, so certainly the discussion tonight will help us inform as we continue to refine those in the coming weeks. It's as brief as I could be.
That was very, very well done for being brief. So we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting now. Just a quick bit of guidance. There's a microphone right in the middle. If you can come up to the microphone and state your name and your address so that we have that for the record. You have up to 3 minutes to make your comments. Maureen, to my left, is going to be timing you. At your 1 minute mark, she will give you a 1 minute sign to let you know that that you have a minute left. And we do ask you to kindly stick to that time frame because we have obviously a fair number of people to get through tonight who would like to speak. I know in the past we've had some people who have brought a printed out copy of what they have to say. Sometimes they make it through all that, sometimes they don't in their actual verbal. But if you can hand it down to the end here to Sandy and Maureen, if you have a printed copy, they will make sure that those printed copies get out to the school committee so that we have the full context of your written statement, even if you don't get to make it all, excuse me, as part of your verbal commentary here today. I think that's about it. Go ahead, Paul. Oh, yeah.
So, Brian, at the bottom of page 1, there are other areas of expected savings. You left out addressing the COLA, and I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that that is still a question mark. That could potentially be a 6th area of savings.
Yep, absolutely. And I didn't note those. I should have noted those, that those 5 areas, special education out of district tuitions, special education transportation, those are the actual costs. There's some fluctuation potentially there. Additional revenue through circuit breaker reimbursement through the SOA. Additional charter school funding. If it starts to mimic the current year funding, we would get more reimbursement there. And then regional transportation reimbursement. So those 5 areas are additional cost savings or revenues. And then as well as Paul mentioned, the contract is not final until the contract is settled. So there could potentially be savings there, absolutely.
All right. So before I open it, one final comment, just so that you know what to expect. We're bound by Mass General Law as far as how a hearing can be run. It cannot be a discussion between the committee and whoever the speaker is. However, if you do have a question that you ask as part of your commentary, the administration can provide a brief answer to that as part of the process. That will not count against your time if the superintendent or business manager or whoever it happens to be is providing a response to you. So it's actually your literal speaking time that amounts for the excuse me, for the 3 minute time limit. All right, all of that said, I'm going to stop talking and hopefully get some of my voice back while it rests. So who would like to speak first? All right, we've got one in the back row.
Hello, Jen Rockett, tenants, Salisbury, 125 Main Street. Thank you for all the time and the thought that you put into making this budget. And with that, I'd love to say, like, just in one fell swoop, we could just all say, yay, let's approve it. But I have some really big concerns about the number for Salisbury this year. It's really high. And as much as I support this budget, I also have to support my community because I feel like it's equally important to our kids' growth. This year, Salisbury saw a tax increase for property assessments as well as our override that we passed last year. So realistically, I don't think that even proposing an override would be something that would be accepted warmly or even approved. And the other concern I have is just the way that the town meetings are set up, that I'm worried that that would give Newbury and Rowley the opportunity to actually have the voice for Salisbury if they approve their numbers before we even got to them. I don't know what the I don't know what the short answer is to fixing that, but if there is some wiggle room, which I was mentioned to Narissa before, I'm sure there isn't much, but just to take those into consideration, because that's, the number is significantly higher than what I think can be reasonably accepted in a regular operating budget for the town. I think that was all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Up next. Takers?
Jane White, 147 Daniels Road in Rowley, and I do have prepared remarks. Thank you for the opportunity to address the school committee and guests this evening, and first and foremost, thank you for all you do for our communities. I can't imagine all the numbers and paperwork. Ooh. I would like to express a concern with the current class size and the sizes in the 5th grade cohort at Pine Grove School. This grade's classes currently have 25, 25, and 26 students, significantly higher than the average for both the school and the district as a whole. While we are blessed with wonderful teachers, there are simply too many students to ensure quality, one-on-one time on a regular basis. Given the unique educational, emotional, and physical needs of some of these students, individual help is even less available. I would like to request that the school committee allocate resources to hire a 4th teacher for this cohort next year, which will be the students' 6th grade year, the last chance to ready these students for middle school. While I understand that budgets are tight, and trust me, I get it, okay? I get that. I believe that this is an investment now, and these students will help foster success for them in the future. And if anyone is doing the math in their heads, assuming that the cohort remains at 76 students, that's 19 students per class for each of 4 classes, which is still large, for the record, but much more manageable, and I believe in line with the average class size for the rest of Pine Grove. The one thing I will add is I also teach, and I've noticed, it's funny because normally I have classes of up to 30 students. I teach at the college level. This semester I have a class of 11 students and I have a class of 17 students, and the student engagement, level of student engagement is amazingly different. The kids are so much more engaged, they're so much more interactive with me. I can't imagine trying to have 26 5th graders wiggling around and trying to get them all to pay attention while still getting through what's essentially a middle school curriculum next year. I've spoken to some of the teachers. They're not happy with the class size, regardless of what's coming out of Pine Grove. So I'd implore you to put a little more thought into it. Please find some budget for us, okay? Sorry, guys. All right, to whom do I give?
Thank you. Next. Any brave souls?
Come on, ladies. Prepare something, but on my phone.
I should add this too. There's a general school committee address as well. So if you have something prepared that's electronic,
Okay.
rather than handing it on paper, you can always send it to schoolcommittee@tritonschools.org.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Kristin Moore, JC, and I live at, I'm like, where do I live? 60 Wilson Pond Lane in Rowley. And I'm also here to express my concern about the current 5th grade at Pine Grove School. Compared to Newberry, there are about 7 more students per classroom, and that's an additional 7 students' needs to be met, and 7 additional sets of parents to communicate with, and 7 additional report cards, and 7 additional conferences. And so this is not only inequitable to the students, but it's also inequitable to the teachers. I'm a teacher, so I understand the impact of large class sizes, no matter how phenomenal those teachers are. I'd hope the committee would consider allocating resources to at least put these Pine Grove students on equal ground with the other Triton elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. Don't worry, it's not a stack. All right, so I got a little statement too as well. Brian DePersia, 500 Weathersfield Street in Rowley. First of all, I'd like to say that I am proud to send my child to Pine Grove Elementary School, which through all the efforts of the Triton Regional School District and School Committee, the town of Rowley and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has transformed an aging school into a state-of-the-art educational center. I would like to think whether someone has a student in PGS or not, that they are proud of the support Rowley has put towards making PGS renovation a successful project. May it serve the town well for many years to come. Next, I would like to thank the district administration and the school committee for their tireless dedication in working through this budget process. The work behind the scenes is undoubtedly time-consuming and stressful, with many meetings and personal sacrifice. I encourage the district to promote a culture of continuous development of bold new ideas, to set high goals, to challenge the status quo by creating and supporting programs that benefit the education and the lives of its students. It is necessary to continually learn and grow and to evaluate what is working and what is not. We live in an ever-changing world, and the district too should be ever-changing. Curriculums, programs, operations, they all require nonstop review to weed out inefficiencies and highlight successes. I believe it is paramount that the highest priority of the district be, above all, for what is in the best interest of its students, and that is providing the highest quality education and life skills for every individual. Such a lofty goal would be impossible without the collaboration of the district and every member community working together on a common path forward. On that same note, it is everyone's responsibility, educator, town official, resident, and parent, to engage the state on its obvious shortcomings when it comes to the regional district funding. It's simply not enough to say that the state isn't paying their fair share. Action must be taken to push for change and to hold the state accountable on its responsibilities. Progress, although steady, has been slow and will continue to be without the outspoken voices being heard from those in each community. Thank you for this opportunity to allow my voice to be heard and to voice my support for the FY21 district budget. Thank you.
Thank you. You can go right down here. All right. Who's up next?
Jim Moran, 104 Elm Street in Newbury. I first want to thank the committee. They've done a great job. They run a great school system, and this budget is outstanding in its presentation and detail, and you all need to be recognized and congratulated for that. That being said, Brian, we had some discussions last year on potential capital improvements here to this building. Is there any change, or can you give us a status on that?
Absolutely. So last year, I think at this time, we were talking about engaging an engineering firm. So that happened over the course of the fall. Habib and Associates completed over the course of, call it roughly 3 months, studied the entirety of this building envelope, fit, finish, systems, you name it, site work, and have a report with some pretty large numbers that has been finalized. We are working through that and anticipate having Habib and Associates come to the school committee on April 8th to present that information. We wanted to keep it would have aligned perfectly with the presentation along with the budget. It is certainly not something we're saying we want to try to address this year. So we decided that since it wasn't happening this year, to move it outside the budget process. So that first meeting in April 8th will be a presentation.
So there's no money in this budget this coming fiscal year for any capital improvements?
Correct.
Right.
Other than some repairs, but
Sure.
no capital improvements.
Knowing roughly what kind of order of magnitude makes you see next year coming from the big numbers your consultant has given you?
For next year's budget,
Yes.
there would be no spending for what they're proposing. There'd be nothing included in next year's budget. The magnitude of the repairs are going to be talking about a project. Wherever down the road, that's the discussion to have.
Sure.
It's not small
what is the
piecemeal.
order of magnitude and total that these may be over the future years?
Total cost, it totally depends whether it's phased as individual projects or if it's something where the community say, let's partner with the MSBA and look out several years and get state money to be included. That all has to be part of the discussion. So I can't answer that question yet.
Sure. Okay. I would encourage you at our town meeting in April to address that, just to make the people aware of the future costs, which will be very significant in the multi-million dollars spread out over many years also. On page 1 at the bottom, the areas of potential further savings, what would you say is the cumulative potential for those savings?
It depends on the day. There are days when the special education is looking positive and then it's negative. The middle additional revenue through the circuit breaker transportation reimbursement, we're honing in on a number that's 120,000, trying to gain confidence in that. Charter school funding and regional transportation reimbursement, I don't believe we're going to get anything definitive from the state to the point where I can confidently sit in front of the committee and say, here's a revenue we can assume. So then the first two, special education out-of-district tuitions and special education transportation, we're looking to refine that for a discussion for next week, and hope to be able to bring some numbers back to the committee.
So next week you'll have a better handle
Yep.
on where that's going. And those all apply to the items under the non-salary changes above?
Yep, so out-of-district tuitions is line 10. Special ed transportation is line 12. Charter for school, the others are revenues, so they wouldn't be directly applied to one of those lines.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, I'm one of the terrified residents of the area that's come before this formidable board. But, and I have to apologize because of my underperformance through my elementary and high school years. So I hope you accept my apology. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Get that, you inspired someone. Dale would have been up here anyway.
Hi, I'm Dale Williams, Scotland Heights Drive in Newbury. In large part, one of the biggest reasons I moved to Newbury was Newbury Elementary School. It was a driver for our family to locate here. And now that I have two girls that have gone through Triton and two girls have gone through Clemson, paid my last tuition payment. The second one's graduating in a couple months. I wouldn't do it over again any differently. I'm proud of this district, and I'm proud of how it's being managed, especially over the last 10 years. I'm proud of this committee for the hard work you guys do, and I'm proud of all the teachers and the staff that make Triton what it is. I only have one exception or comment about the budget itself, and I'm dismayed and discouraged by the 1% increase in Chapter 70. It's so disappointing, especially all the hard work, especially that you have done, Narissa, but the whole committee, to try to effectuate thinking change on Beacon Hill. And I'm a little disappointed that our politicians aren't here tonight to helpfully address the public's concern about why we're getting nothing again. It's disappointing to me. Thank you, Brian, for all your diligence with this budget and all your staff that do it. And I did want to say that 15 years ago this month, I put my hat in the ring to run for the school committee. And it was a heartfelt effort on my part. I didn't win. I was disappointed. But there's the person that defeated me at the polls is sitting right here, Dina Sullivan, who was about to retire. So even though that was a discouraging thing for my life, this district benefited so much by having Dina and what she's meant to this district, what she's poured into all the kids in this district. And I just wanted to thank her for that. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you, Dale. I truly appreciate your comments.
So can we just clarify, were you announcing a candidacy? I just couldn't tell. Okay, I needed to clarify.
No. All right.
Yeah, I'm a little short. Alison Irvin, I do not have a statement prepared or anything. I live at 154 Weathersfield Street in Raleigh, and my only concern is I know how much work I'm not going to take up your time with that. Everybody has done here and everything. My only concern is all the talk I hear about school choicing. I know it's a budget issue, and all the talk of it really concerns me and really scares me. I had the opportunity to student teach here at Triton, and it was fabulous to see the inside look. And I don't think a lot of our parents and a lot of our neighbors, or anybody for that matter, sees that. And I think we have awesome staff here. We have awesome people here. But the word's just not out, and we really need that out there. I am in a job right now over in Newburyport, and it's kind of scary because I see familiar faces. And I shouldn't, because that's not my district. But so that's my concern is I also have a 5th grader, and I also have a 7th grader here at Triton, And I hear a lot of talk of school choicing. So it's like, yeah, we may not have the budget for a fourth teacher at Pine Grove, but if we don't and they leave Pine Grove for sixth grade, because there are opportunities, the knock starts in sixth grade for middle school. If we lose them at that point, we probably don't get them back. And then that's more money that we're budgeting out. Just a different perspective.
Thank you. Who's up next?
Good evening, Burnie Cullen, again from Wethersfield Street. It seems to be a problem area. Must be the water, I guess. So I'd like to add my thanks to the committee and the administration for the work that they've done in the last year, particularly with respect to working with the state. The amount of effort that's gone in has been truly astonishing. The amount of skill is truly astonishing. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen the return that all that effort and the blood, sweat, and tears has put into that effort to try and get the state to cough up what they really need to cough up. So, having said that, at the top level, the 6% increase in the operating budget remains unsustainable. The towns. Each year it varies on which town gets hit the hardest. The last 2 years it's been Salisbury, and that's obviously very difficult for the town. This year Rowley has been the beneficiary somewhat of just the way the formulas work, but 6% in aggregate just is not sustainable. We've had a good year in Rowley in terms of our revenues, but it's not 6%. It's nowhere near 6%. So the 6% going forward, that 6% we can't just keep doing it. So that's the first point. The second point, I was pleased in hearing the presentation from the Principal O'Neill at the high school, emphasizing that the effort, or trying to get an effort to integrate technology into the ongoing classroom pedagogy, the way the classrooms actually, the students actually get taught on what they learn. My issue is not that. I think that is exactly the right way to go. Sooner or later, everybody is going to be, I'll be quick. My concern is that the high school has 47 regular teachers. The fact that we can't find resources to support that integration of the technology out of that level of resources just strikes me as being odd. I'm sure that there are ways to do that, either through realignment of existing staff or the way you hire when there's retirements or people just leave. Last point is similar to that, which is, again, looking at the internal way the resources are allocated is with the special ed department. There's a report this year that I was hoping was going to address the actual working processes and how the resources are allocated within special ed. That didn't turn out to be the case. But just looking at the numbers, there are 50 professionals in special ed throughout the district, another 86 instructional assistants to support 442 students. There has to be better ways to effectively utilize those resources than what is happening currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next.
Good evening. My name is Kjell McDonough. I'm from 43 Main Street in Newbury. I think you folks have done a great job putting a budget together. I'm almost reluctant to speak because I wanted to mention something that's a very small amount of money, but hopefully in the future it'll act as a revenue stream. As a cable subscriber, I pay 5% of my bill for public education and governmental programming. Here in Newbury, you folks have done an excellent job in putting programming on the education channel. You receive some money from Newbury at the town meeting after an interesting vote. And I was delighted to see that you really put that money to good use, that you were able to get your meetings on the air live, that you were able to spend the money wisely with equipment and teach your students a lot more about technology. I think that video literacy is an important thing, that there's a lot of people making a very good living on how they put together video. I think you have an excellent program here, and I think there is an opportunity for the school to be getting its fair share of the education money, both for training, for good equipment, and to keep up with technology. So although a relatively small amount of money, Newbury gets about $140,000 a year. You are doing half the work, have half the channels, but I'm sure being able to have $70,000 to spend to improve program and equipment would really go a long way. You've done a great job in stretching the money that you've received in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak? All right, excellent. Well, thank you for your time here tonight. Just to kind of wrap up real quick, we do have a meeting tomorrow night with the town officials. So we meet typically monthly, sometimes twice a month, with members of the 3 towns boards of selectmen, finance committees, and the town manager administrators. So that's actually happening tomorrow night, which is, I believe, why a lot of them aren't here tonight, because we have had them in the past when the dates have not been so close together. But they do have their chance to kind of make their statements tomorrow night. And that'll be at Raleigh Town Hall. It is a public meeting. It starts at 6:30. The next Wednesday, which is March 4th, we'll have budget deliberations, in part based on the commentary that we heard here tonight. That'll be at 7 p.m. here in the high school library. And then the final fiscal year 21 budget will be voted on March 11th, which is the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. here, also here in the high school library. In that we do still have a significant amount of time, a couple of weeks left in this budget period. I would also recommend and encourage anyone who wasn't able to make it here tonight to make a live statement, to take advantage of the opportunity to put in an email to the school committee and register their feelings and opinions that way. And also, we do have a public comment period that's at the beginning of both the March 4th and the March 11th meetings. March 11th is probably a little late in the process, but March 4th, a similar opportunity where someone would have the opportunity to come and express a live opinion to the committee. All that said, thank you for coming here tonight in the spirit of democracy, hoorah. And thank you to the committee for taking the time tonight to make sure that all the voices in our community were listened to as part of this process. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Just to clarify the email address, so rather than having to send to individual committee members,
Yes.
it's schoolcommittee@tritonschools.org, and it will send to all 9 committee members. So you won't get a response back from 9 different members, and you'll get a message that says that because of open meeting law, but any message you send to schoolcommittee@tritonschools.org will be delivered to all 9 members.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you very much.